When we're going to take a couple of minutes, we're just waiting for another member to arrive here, and this place is a little bit hard to find. So if we can hold off for a few minutes, thank you for your patience.
Sounds good.
Good morning. Okay, we'll go ahead and start this January 16th, 2025 board meeting of the Cannabis Compliance Board. If we can have a roll call.
Yes. Vice Chair Durrett. I believe she's running a few minutes late, so please mark her present when she gets here. Justice Douglas.
Here.
Member Merritt.
Present.
Dr. Mazarana.
Here.
Chair Guzman Frelick.
Here.
We have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll start the public comment period. We'll go down in the south, the north, and online. We'll get instructions for the online public comment.
To provide public comment via telephone, call 669-444-9171. Enter webinar ID 810-8141-6208, followed by passcode 245736.
Thank you. So we'll begin the public comment first in the South, but as part of my public comment, I just wanted to say a few words about our esteemed colleague, Justice Douglas. He's a remarkable leader, as we all know, and a true pillar of the Cannabis Compliance Board. A little bit about his service here. Justice Douglas joined the board in 2020 as one of its founding members. As chairman from 2020 to 2023, he guided this body through its formative years, shaping the values and standards that define our work today. Though the CCB is still in its infancy, Justice Douglas' steady hand has set it on a strong and principled course for our future. On a personal note, I am very grateful to Justice Douglas in stepping into this role as chairwoman. His insights, his calm demeanor, and his wisdom and counsel have been invaluable to me. So I thank you for that, Justice Douglas. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your patience. I speak personally just because I know that you are quite learned in your role, not just here, but everywhere. So thank you so much, and we wish you the very best. This being your last meeting with us, we truly, truly appreciate your service. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And with that, I will open it up to everybody else because I'm sure that everybody's got comments about Justice Douglas. We'll start with the South.
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Michael Douglas for the record and public comment. I wish to take this opportunity to thank former Governor Sisolak, as well as our present governor, for allowing me to have service on this board. I would also thank the original Cannabis Compliance Board, Mr. Nylander, Dr. Young, Ms. Merritt, Ms. Durrett. And if I left anybody out, that's because of the gray hair on my head. But with that, more importantly, I did so in private the other day, but publicly, I think it's important to thank the men and the women of the Cannabis Compliance Unit for the work they do every day. They are professionals, and all they are trying to do is move the cannabis industry forward with the work they do. There's no animus, there's no hidden agendas, just very good work, and they make being a board member a lot easier. I additionally would thank our new chair and our new board members, Dr. Mazzarano coming on board with the holdover board members, Merritt, Durrett. It's been an interesting experience with the new industry, trying to carve out its niche in the state of Nevada, trying to, on one hand, be a good business model from a business standpoint, make money, but by the same token, serving the public and making sure the public is not injured. I've criticized at times the industry, but I state that 90+% of the industry follows the rules set forth. And their aim is to run good businesses and to protect the public doing so. There are a lot of things that still have to be done, hopefully with this board and hopefully new initiatives by the legislature that can move that forward. I additionally would like to thank the persons that have made this journey enjoyable. The first director of the Cannabis Compliance Board or executive officer, Tyler Klimas, and the existing or present director of the board, James Hum. they have steadfast tried to move the industry forward and try to streamline process for the folks in the industry while protecting the people. With that, it's been a great ride, and I thank everyone.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we'll continue with our public, no, go ahead. Continue with our public comment. Good morning.
Good morning. Chair Guzman Fraley, great to see you through Zoom. Director Hum, members of the board, Member Merritt, Justice Douglas, Member Durrett, Dr. Mazarana, great to be here. For the record, my name is Tyler Klimas. I am the former executive director of the Cannabis Compliance Board, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to say my thanks to Justice Douglas for his incredible work leading this agency as its first board chair and his continued work as a board member. Justice, you were here from the very beginning. You leave an incredible mark on this agency as well as the state's cannabis industry. You worked many more hours on the CCB than you signed up for, that were sold to you as part of the job, and nobody knows that better than I do. Your commitment to doing the right thing, your commitment to integrity, you set a high standard and example for everyone here in the agency to follow, including me. And beyond thanking you for the job that you did, I thank you most importantly for your role as a mentor and the mentorship that you provided. And that's in every sense of that word. Not only did you extend that mentorship to the agency itself, to every member of the agency staff and the work that we did, but also to me. That mentorship extended beyond my professional duties and the job that we had to do, but to my personal life and my family life. And your insights, your experience, your life lessons, your calm demeanor, those I will take with me for a very long time. That is mentorship that I will not forget. And to be clear, this isn't your wake, Justice. There are still more lessons that we all get to learn from you. More times I get to hear you upset with rooting for a championship baseball team, something I don't know much about. But I am forever indebted to you, Justice. I think this agency is forever indebted to you, as is the state. And that's not only for your public service on this board, but your decades of public service to the state of Nevada. So Justice, thank you. I appreciate you. I know the state appreciates you. We're excited to see what you do next. Chair, Director Hum, thank you for the time. Board members, thank you for the time today. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Additional comment in the South?
Yep, we have one, at least one more.
Good morning, Amanda Connor for the record. I just wanted to thank you, Justice Douglas, on behalf of myself and our firm for all that you have done. Although we didn't always agree, I appreciated your expertise, the knowledge you shared with us, and others have mentioned it, but the calm demeanor and presence that you brought to the Cannabis Compliance Board and the way you led the board. We appreciate your service and thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. Is there any additional comment in the South?
Is that Chair?
Okay. Any comment in the North?
Hi, Lake Martin, Nevada Cannabis Association. Wanted to echo all of the comments as well on behalf of our members. Justice Douglas, thank you so much for your steady leadership and we are deeply appreciative for all of your contributions to the cannabis industry, and you will be missed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. With no additional comment in the north or the south, we'll go ahead and go online. Any comment online?
If you wish to provide public comment, dial *9 to raise your hand if joining by phone, or click the raise hand icon if joining via Zoom. We have no online comment.
Okay, and then additional comment with regard to Justice Douglas.
Member Durrett, for the record, I've shared this before, but I'm really here because of Justice Douglas, because when he was announced and Member Nylander were announced, I thought, wow, this whole agency thing is really going somewhere. This is so impressive that this Supreme Court justice, who is very well respected jurist, is going to step down from being a senior judge to help launch this. And I was so impressed and excited about it that I decided to leave my job and do the Cannabis Compliance Board. So I really appreciate that he brought his reputation and years of experience to the board. And we did disagree about most things, but always after the hearings, how are you? How's your wife? How's just always just a consummate professional, collegial. I'm very excited, mostly excited about his work at Boyd. Being an alumna, he's done an amazing thing there, starting this clinic and this pathway for students who would maybe not otherwise envision themselves in law school. And he has helped building a pipeline for those students to go to law school. And I'm really excited about that and hope I can help in some way. Thank you, Justice.
Additional comment. I know we do have comment in the north, business comment for items on the agenda or general items that we have control over. But any additional comment with regard to Justice Douglas? Okay. All right. You have additional comment in the north.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You'll be missed, Justice Douglas. Sure.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Guzman-Fralick, Vice Chair Durrett, board members and staff. Lake Martin again on behalf of Nevada Cannabis Association. Changing gears a little bit, I wanted to comment on the guidance that was issued by the CCB on January 7th, 2025, having to do with terpenes. It established new criteria for the approval of menu items that use botanical terpenes. And these changes weren't scheduled for a workshop. They seem to have skipped the rulemaking process. They do have a very real impact on licensees. Many licensees have been waiting for several months for approval of menu items by the CCB. And now with this new guidance, the rules for approving those menu items have changed. And staff has denied menu requests for items that have previously been approved based on these new criteria. In addition to the procedural concerns, there are substantive concerns with the guidance, and there are plenty of licensees and terpene companies who would be happy to discuss these concerns at a workshop on these new rules. They've not been given that opportunity. So the guidance does say that you can provide feedback within 10 business days, but that doesn't comply with the Administrative Procedures Act. We aren't able to have a full discussion and transparency regarding these new rules as we would if the rulemaking process were followed. The language of the guidance itself either contradicts directly or creates new rules that aren't currently in the language of the regulations. Regulation 9 doesn't speak directly to botanical terpenes, and the guidance creates a host of new rules for these terpenes. Reg 9 lists approved solvents that cannabis production companies can use for cannabis extractions, but it doesn't speak to solvents for non-cannabis extraction by third-party producers who are not cannabis production facilities. Reg 9.020 includes other solvents approved by the board, and these exact botanical terpenes have been in use for years with board CCB staff approval. So one of the big issues here is that many of the menu items now being denied were previously approved. The guidance requires upfront proof that certain solvents have not been used in the extraction process by the third-party company. However, there's an allowable limit when testing for residual solvents in the regs. So to be clear, these are not the only issues. I could go on, but I do want to be mindful of the time limit for public comment. This isn't an agenda item on today's agenda. And our concern is that while we do want the board to take this up through the regulatory process, we do not wish it to further hold up menu approvals. Some of those, like I said, have been held up for months already. It's costing companies money. There are many companies who have built a brand based on these menu items that, again, have been previously approved. So what we hope not to see is further holdups for menu approvals, or worse, an admin hold on anything that's been previously approved. At the same time, these new rules do need to go through the regulatory process. And while the focus of my comment right now is procedural, I do want to mention that these new rules come at a time when intoxicating hemp products, which are untested and unregulated, are taking over the market. They're being sold online and at local smoke shops and gas stations. We also have a flourishing unlicensed cannabis market whose sales total as much as $370 million a year. So we ask that this board consider and balance rule changes like this one related to botanical terpenes, which have previously been approved, that do have a significant impact on the legal businesses, against the ever-present threats of the unlicensed and unregulated hemp and cannabis markets. Like I said, there are tens of thousands of products in the legal market already that have been approved that contain these items. And so we really want to be cautious about how this is treated going forward. But I wanted to raise this for the board's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment? Any additional comment online?
There are no raised hands online.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing that, then we'll go ahead and go on to item number 2, which is our consent agenda item. We have 3 items under the consent agenda. If any board member has any item that they would like to pull for discussion, deliberation and vote, they can do that at this time. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and take we'll take a vote or take a motion on any of these consent items, starting with item A, which is the consideration of approval to extend final inspection deadline to December 1st, 2025.
Member Freilich, Member Douglas, for the record, move to approve consent items A, 1, 2, and 3 with final inspection deadline extended to December 1, 2025.
Appreciate it. Thank
Merritt,
you.
for the record, I second.
Thank you, Member Merritt. We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to item number 2B, which is the meeting minutes. We've got 2 items under this agenda item, and that is the minutes of our last meeting, general or regular meeting, which was December 19th, 2024. And then we also have the meeting minutes of our special meeting, which was December 27th, 2024. Any concerns, comments, changes with regard to these minutes? And if not, I'll go ahead and take a motion for a vote.
Member Merritt, for the record, I move to approve the minutes of December 19, 2024, and the minutes for December 27th, 2024.
First, is there a second?
Member Mazarano seconds that motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on to consent item C, which is complaints. And we've got some description with regard to that complaint.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Item C1 on the agenda concerns a complaint for disciplinary action. Pursuant to NRS 678A.510, the Attorney General has reviewed these violations and has recommended proceeding with this disciplinary action. I am requesting board approval to proceed with this disciplinary action. If approved, I will then authorize service of the complaint. As service is in the hands of the executive director, we are not required to immediately serve the complainant today. Once the board approves proceeding with this disciplinary action, service will proceed within a reasonable time. Once the complaint is out for service, the CCB will post it on our website. As NRS 678.510 requires us to preserve respondents' due process rights, per the board's usual practice, I will not disclose the name of the licensee or the full details of the complaint. However, I will now present the violations alleged and request the board vote to authorize proceeding with disciplinary action A against respondent A. I would also note that should respondent desire to initiate settlement negotiations on the charges in its complaint, the complaint includes instructions for the respondent or its counsel to contact the Senior Deputy Attorney General handling this matter to discuss potential settlement. As this item is on the consent agenda, you may pull it or consider it together with the other consent agenda items. As respondent A, under agenda item C1, the complaint will allege violations of the following regulations. 1 violation of Regulation 1, multiple violations of Regulation 4, and multiple violations of Regulation 6. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any comments or concerns with regard to this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
Member Douglas, for the record, I move for the approval to proceed with disciplinary action as outlined by Mr. Hum.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Member Mazarin, seconds that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That brings us to item number 3. This is the consideration of approval of CCB's policy for cannabis compliance board members and employees during Nevada's 83rd legislative session. Mr. Helm, were you going to present on this?
I had not planned to, but basically it's the same.
And I can comment on this because I asked for
Yeah,
this.
this is the same policy that we shared with the board at the last meeting. Read it aloud. Boards had a chance to review it. It was not an agenda item, so it was just for discussion only that I had presented. So now bringing that back in front of the board for board approval.
Okay, and I had originally asked for this policy because I had been accustomed to boards and commissions, local government having a policy with regard to its board members, commission members, what have you, and employees, and lobbying or testifying before the legislature. And I wanted a policy that would pretty much talk about who could go testify, who could lobby, so that way we're all on the same page. I understand that you can't really shave off, for example, if I were to go testify before the legislature, I can't really shave off the fact that I'm the, chair of the CCB. But unless I've had a discussion with the board in a public meeting and I've come to a decision and a vote on a certain item, I can't represent that I am speaking on behalf of the board unless that has taken place. But I certainly can, and it's my right to go to the legislature and testify on my own behalf as Adriana Guzman Freilich, resident, a human, a mother, a whatever. So I just wanted to make sure that we had some guidelines for everybody to follow and to be on the same page. So with that, thank you for bringing the policy forward. And I also had asked that during the session, we would have, at every meeting, we would have a briefing on all of the items that are before the legislature that touch CCB or are within our domain and control, so that we can discuss it and we can give you direction as to whether or not whether we oppose a certain bill or we approve a bill or if we're neutral on it. And that way you have direction to go to the legislature and provide that guidance from the board. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to any comments, concerns, questions from the board members before we vote.
Member Durrett, for the record, I think, the policy is kind of common sense. Like last legislative session, I did testify on a bill. I think I was asked to testify on it. And I made clear that I was testifying in my own capacity, not on behalf of the entire board. So I think it makes sense, but I think the timing is a little awkward because right now we as a board are saying we need guardrails around ourselves as a board and how we're going to engage with the legislative session, but we haven't really worked out the other details about, well, how is this legislation going to be brought to us? Is it going to be brought to us at future meetings? And that is how we will voice what our concerns. So as long as, I think with the chair's along with the chair's understanding that legislation will be brought to us, and that is how we will voice our concerns. In addition, if we wanted to testify in our own capacity, with that understanding, I'm comfortable adopting the policy now if the other board members are, with that understanding that legislation will be brought to us at board meetings, and that's how we'll gauge the CCB's response to them.
Yes, and I will 100% make that commitment. That was the plan all along.
Thank you.
Member Douglas, for the record, if the legislature acts as they have always acted, as we get to the end of the session, things will move very rapidly after no movement prior to that. And I'm not sure if it will always allow the board to consider allowing testimony on behalf of the board by the director or the chair. So I think common sense has to be some room for common sense to allow comment to be made if something comes up at the end, which it will on short notice.
Yes, no, I agree with that. Definitely. And I think communication will be key at that point because things happen at midnight, right? and usually, especially at the end there, things get sideways or backwards or inside out or what have you, but that's just, that's the nature of it. But definitely, I think communication is key.
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments or concerns? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Member Mazzarano makes a motion to approve the CCD's policy for cannabis compliance board members and employees during Nevada's 83rd legislative session.
Member Merritt, for the record, I second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is the consideration of proposed settlement agreements to resolve disciplinary action. And we have, who's the dinner order? Emily. Border Love, if you can go ahead and present to us. We've got 4 items, and 3 are related and 1 separate, correct?
All 4 are related, Chair.
Oh, all 4, okay. All 4 are related, and we have some different terms that I haven't seen before, but go ahead if you can go ahead and brief us on that before we vote. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. For the record, this is Emily Bordelove, Senior Deputy Attorney General, appearing as counsel for the CCB, to present items 4A1 through 4, products of a global settlement agreement, which you can see from the binders in front of you, and which have been presented in front of you. 4 settlement agreements listed on the agenda are grouped by facility where the licensors are located. The first 2 on the agenda are 2 dispensaries in 2 different locations. was Clark NMSD under facility number D186. That's case number 2023-003. It's located in downtown Las Vegas. The second is for Clark NMSD under facility number D187, case number 2023-004. That's located in North Las Vegas. The next two are for cultivation and production facilities, two separate facilities. So the third is Clark Natural Solutions, LLC, as a cultivation and production facility with license numbers C165 and 108. That's case number 2023-021. Next, Nine Natural Solutions, LLC, which is cultivation, production, and distribution licenses under facility numbers C166, P107, and 2065 under case number 2024-006. So that's 4 facilities, 7 licenses total we're dealing with here. These 4 facilities have identical natural person ownership: Pejman Beatty, Joseph Kennedy, and Pooja Mohair. The procedural history of each case is outlined in the settlement agreements before you under paragraphs 2 through 7. In summary, in early 2023, the CCB filed 2 separate complaints against the 2 dispensary facilities, D186 and D187. These complaints alleged predominantly inventory-related violations, such as variances with missing cannabis or excess cannabis. This is outlined in paragraphs 2. While these complaints are being drafted and filed, the issues with Clark Natural's cultivation facilities' use of fluoral/athafon arose. Details are outlined in paragraphs 4 of that settlement agreement, where the fluoral/athafon is a plant growth regulator, which is not on the Nevada Department of Agriculture's list of pesticides approved for use in cannabis. While the parties were negotiating how to handle the impact of cannabis and resolution of the 2 complaints against the dispensaries, the license holders approached the CCB about pursuing a global resolution for all alleged violations for all 7 licenses. In doing so, they self-reported that they had 2 TOI applications, transfers of interest, for 3 of the facilities that could be an issue, and requested to withdraw those TOIs. As outlined in paragraphs 4 and 29, these are for TOIs 22-00017, that sought the transfer of D186 and D187, the 2 dispensaries, and TOI 22-00016, that sought transfer of the licenses under Nine Naturals, which is C166, P107, T065. The TOIs contemplated these licenses would transfer to another entity, but would be owned by the same natural owners. The transfer was not actually affected. As noted, they requested to withdraw this TOI, leaving ownership as is for now. During these negotiations, CCB's yearly audits and inspections proceeded for all the 4 facilities. CCB staff findings found predominantly either repeat or related alleged violations associated with inventory, as outlined in paragraphs 5 in the settlement agreements for you. The CCB reviewed the nature and recurrence of the violations and focused on advisory and corrective actions in the settlement terms to minimize the risk of recurrence of these violations, which resulted in the agreed upon terms before you. Factors considered in the settlements as required by statute and regulation are outlined in paragraphs 14. Subsections A outline the factors taken into consideration under NCCR 4.030, subsection 2. This includes history and compliance and the severity of violations. And for the 2 facilities where the owners have volunteered to sell the licenses, which are D186 and Clark Naturals C165 and P108, a higher civil penalty and pleas to single category 3 violation were considered favorable so as not to dissuade potential buyers for these licenses. Subsection B outlined the factors taken into consideration under NRS 678A-647, specifically self-report of violations such as TOI, submitted plans of corrections approved by CCB staff, that respondent took action to correct as noted in the agreements, and respondent's cooperation. Parties agree that equal weight was given to all 3 factors, and the factors under this new statute were applied to alleged violations that occurred or reported after the effective date of the statute, which is June 13th, 2023. The civil penalty amounts and admitted violations are outlined in paragraphs 15 through 16. For D186, the civil penalty, for D186, it's an admission to 1 category 3 for failing to keep required records, including seed to sale tracking requirements, a civil penalty of $40,000, and voluntary sale of D186. For D187, it's the admission of 1 category 4 for failing to comply with required employee training, admission to 1 category 5 for failing to comply with any other requirements not described in any other category of violations, and a $17,500 civil penalty. For Clark Naturals, it's the emission of one Category 3 for the use of unauthorized pesticides, a $50,000 civil penalty for C165, and voluntary sale of both C165 and P108 as they are co-located. For 9 Naturals, it's admission to one Category 5 violation for each license of C166, P107, and T065 for failing to comply with any requirements not described in any other category of violations, and a civil penalty of $5,000. The total civil penalties for all 7 licenses are $112,500. And in the settlement agreements before you, as outlined in paragraphs 24, the CCB and council work to create corrective action plans for handling the repeated inventory violations outlined for the 2 dispensaries and for the 9 facilities. Of note, D186 will continue the plan under new ownership unless the owners have established history of compliance as outlined in paragraphs 24, subsection 2D. For Clark Natural, the facility that was involved with the floral/ethafun use, the CCB focused on ensuring that products that had pesticide use applied were taken off the market, and the owners agreed to destroy the allegedly affected cannabis products. Further, for Clark Naturals, as noted, the owners volunteered to sell the underlying license for the facility. For D186, during the course of the facility's internal inventory investigations, the owners decided to offer to sell the license as part of the settlement, as outlined in paragraphs 5 and 14. Paragraphs 21 of the settlement agreements for Clark Naturals and D186 outline the terms of voluntary sales. The owners have 90 days for approval of settlement agreements to submit the TOI, so that would be if the board approves today, April 16th, 2025. And the CCB agreed it would finish the investigation 90 days from the receipt of the TOI application, subject to the terms in paragraph 21. If the owners cannot submit the TOI within the time frame as outlined in settlement agreements, they agreed that the licenses would be voluntarily surrendered. Based on the facts of the case, for involving corrective actions, including offer to sell and admissions, the Attorney General recommends and requests that the board approves each of the settlement agreements before you. I'm available for any questions as our counsel for the licensee. With that, I submit.
Thank you, Ms. Bordelove. Ms. Connor, thank you. Do you have a presentation? I think we pretty much have all the facts here. I just wanted to clarify, are there 2 licenses that are going to be sold? Is there 2?
There will be a total of 3 licenses
3.
that will be sold, 2
Okay.
facilities.
2 facilities and 1 license. Okay, thank you.
Just a few brief comments. Amanda Connor with the law firm of Connor & Connor on behalf of Clark NMSD LLC, Clark Natural Medicinal Solutions LLC, and 9 Natural Medicinal Solutions LLC. With me today in the audience is Dr. Pejman Badi, majority owner of the companies, Joseph Kennedy, an owner of the companies, and Derek Connor, counsel as well for the companies. Brian Hardy also served as counsel during these negotiations and disciplinary action. He recently had surgery, so he is not in attendance today, but he asked that I send his appreciation to the CCB staff and the Deputy Attorney Generals for all the hard work put into these matters. Speaking of, as Ms. Bordelove described, these settlement agreements contemplate a global settlement. They reflect tireless and diligent efforts by all parties involved to find a feasible and meaningful resolution. I would like to thank CCB staff, Emily Bordelove, Chris Rath, the Deputy AGs, Brian Hardy, my clients, its owners and staff, and the attorneys and staff in my office for working diligently towards resolving these issues. As you can see, these settlement agreements reflect a desire to put in place measures and corrective actions that allow the licensees to address the deficiencies without solely focusing on monetary penalties or putting these licenses out of business. And this is exactly what I believe the legislature desired with the legislative changes that were enacted in the last legislative session. And we worked for 2 years almost on these settlement agreements to bring it to fruition. Clark NMSD, Clark Natural, 9 Natural appreciate your consideration and would ask for approval of these settlement agreements today. I am available for questions, as is my client, should you have any.
Thank you. Yeah, and speaking on behalf of everyone, we appreciate all the work that has gone into it, just going over the settlement agreements. That was a lot of detail, I'm sure a lot of hours, so I appreciate it. It's come to a positive outcome. So I'll bring this back to the board. And do you have any questions from our Deputy Attorney General, from Ms. Connor, or from Ms. Connor's clients with regard to these transactions?
Member Drat, I have a question. I knew that they were transferring some of the licenses or had a deal in place, right, to sell some of them. But I did not realize one of the conditions was they either sell it or they lose it within 90 days. How confident are you that that deal's going to go through? And is there?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Amanda Connor, for the record, the settlement agreement for D186 and for Clark Natural C165 and P107 do contemplate transfers of interest being submitted within 90 days. However, there was an understanding that there may be additional time needed. So there is provisions for 2 additional extensions to be sought from the CCB to give a total of 270 days to sell the licenses. My client does understand that there is, some risk involved with that, but they have, during the course of these negotiations, they have started to seek out parties to potentially sell the licenses. There is nothing definitive yet, but they will be diligently working on that. This was in negotiations seemed to be more favorable to give the businesses a chance to continue on because of the monetary penalties. Sale of the licenses was what was agreed to.
I, if possible, would like to give some flexibility on that coming back to the board before they're forced to surrender the licenses. I mean, things could change in between now and 270 days where I think it would be very drastic for them to have to surrender the license. I know that was contemplated, what everybody agreed to, but if we can, I would like to give some flexibility of it coming back before the board again, before that they officially have to surrender. I guess I would ask the 8Gs if there's a way to do that. Can we, could a motion include acceptance of this with the condition that it not be automatically surrendered and that issue be revisited by the board in 270 days if the licenses aren't sold?
So as CCB counsel, I can say that we can possibly amend to add a provision to D186 and Clark Naturals to say that a status check before, if we hit that 270-day mark, and then it needs to come before the board. So to add that provision into the settlement agreements, that could be added if the licensees are amenable to that.
I was just going to say, I know that a lot of thought goes into drafting these agreements and the ramifications of, each paragraph. So I guess my ask would be to just, if we want to make sure that we word it in such a way that it's not going to affect any other part of the document.
Member Grant, could that be done today? I mean, would that delay the whole thing?
Member Douglas, for the record, I understand the yin and the yang of what's going on at this point. I think that because of the provisions allowing 2 extensions to be given, that if an extension is given, they could come back and renegotiate the point that Member Durrett is talking about of having this come back before the board. I think we should pass it as it is today because there is wiggle room if the first extension is granted to ask for possibly additional time or additional condition. because this may need to go back to the members of the organizations for approval for that.
Correct. Amanda Connor, for the record, I was going to say a similar comment to the idea Justice Douglas suggested. I would have to run any actual amendments to the agreements by my clients and get approval, and one member is out of country. However, I can say I don't believe my client would be opposed, and I think it would be a good practice that if an extension is needed, we could put it on for a status check or update to the board to discuss the agreement to see if an amendment would be needed at that time.
And one additional comment, Member Douglas, and that is in settlement negotiations and things of that nature, it's always important to hold the parties' feet to the fire to get it resolved and to get it done, to make it final. Otherwise, it just keeps going.
Emily Bordelov, for the record, my only concern with amending today, speaking to Chris Rath, is that we would have to bring the amendment back in front of the board, and that should push everything back. And I know that all parties are very eager to get this wrapped up for the other settlement agreements to go forward, because it was contemplated as a global negotiation for all the licenses. So I agree with Ms. Connor and Justice Douglas pointing out that we can do a status check in the case of a first extension is needed to revisit and amend at that time, so as not to impact the other settlement agreements in terms.
Yes. Member Drett, yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. I'll include that in a motion.
Any additional comments before we get that motion? Okay.
Member Drett, I move to approve the settlement agreements outlined under agenda item 5. I won't go read them again because they were already read into the record. So settlement agreements, agenda item 5A, 1 through 4. I again also thank all the parties involved. This looks like a real beast, and I'm glad that this is being settled under the new law. I would add to the motion, I would request that if a extension is requested, that this come back to the board for further discussion on possible arrangements between the parties, if the contemplated sales don't go through.
Is there a second to that motion?
Member Mazzarano will second that motion, but just make comment that this is agenda item 4, I believe.
Might be looking at an old agenda.
Okay. Agenda item 4A, 1 through 4. We have a first and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you
And
all.
thank you. You're getting your workout today. Okay, with that, we'll go on to item number 5, and this is the briefing from the chair and executive director. Again, Member Douglas, it won't be the same without you. I'll look to you. I'll look to you to bail me out, and you won't be there. But thank you again for your time and your service, and I wish you the very, very best. Yep. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just to the Vice Chair's point earlier, just wanted to say, yes, we will absolutely provide monthly legislative updates to the board. To Justice Douglas's point, it does move pretty quickly mid towards the end of session. So again, we will provide those in real time as best we can. And again, just to be cautious of never creating a quorum outside of that, but we'll keep the board members informed. So now it's my turn to thank the justice, and I just want to echo pretty much everything that my predecessor said, Mr. Klimas, Director Klimas, ditto, and also ditto on the baseball team. But outside of that, it's been over a year now, but I still feel like the new guy, and Justice Douglas was never anything more than welcoming to me just absolutely incredible. His infinite wisdom, our conversations, his knowledge. He helped build this place. And just to come into such an incredible team, I think I say it every meeting, we have the best board in the state. Absolutely incredible. And so, Justice, I literally cannot thank you enough for your welcoming me here, for your kindness, your knowledge, your wisdom, your mentorship, and just literally what you've meant to the CCB. You built it, and I hope to, along with the other board members, continue your legacy. So from the bottom of my heart, Justice, thank you. It's been a pleasure. So, Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you. With that, our next board meeting will be February 20th, 2025. Any items for future agendas for discussion only? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to our final public comment period. First in the south, then the north, and then we'll go online. Is there anybody in the south that would like to provide public comment at this time?
Good morning. Derek Connor with the law firm of Connor and Connor. I also wanted to come thank Justice Douglas for his service to our state, to our legal community, and to this board. It has been a pleasure appearing in front of you. You were in an elite group. You are with somebody with whom Amanda often disagreed with, which I put myself in that group as well. So welcome. I felt like I agreed with you most of the time. Again, thank you very much. Something that I've often thought about is when I was sworn into the bar by you many years ago, it was actually the last time that my whole family was together before my grandfather passed away. You're leaving a great legacy through your career. And we will miss you greatly. Whoever comes in to try to take your place has some very, very big shoes to fill. Thank you very much.
Any additional public comment? Bring it up north. Any additional comment in the north? Any public comment online?
There is no online comment.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn our January 2025 board meeting, and Happy New Year to everyone.